In this video, I'm going to share with you what I would do if I only had £1,000 to invest and kind of get into the property game. But more importantly, at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you how you should be thinking in terms of creating income and equity. And the example I'm going to share with you is going to be transformational for you. So make sure you watch the video. Quite often I get asked about, if I only had £1,000, what would I do with it? Now, before I answer that question, I just want to say that it's difficult for me to answer that question because I'm not in that scenario right now. However, in the past, I have been in that scenario. So what I'm going to do with you, for you now is I'm going to share, knowing everything I know, what I would do with £1,000. So I'm using my knowledge, experience and expertise that I have right now, as opposed to kind of thinking, if I knew nothing whatsoever, how would I do it? Because A, that's difficult for me to kind of get into that scenario and situation because I've kind of got through it, and B, I don't think I would do justice to the question, because usually people are asking me, what would you do if you only had £1,000 right now and you want to invest in property? So I'm not going to go into investing in the stock market or investing in other people's businesses or loaning out money. I mean, if you've got £1,000, whether it's been easy or difficult for you to save up is a different question. But if you've got £1,000, you're not going to be able to dent much in the stock market or investing in somebody else's business. So we've got to try and make that work for you somehow. Now, generally speaking, when we talk to property investors, the kind of low cost, no cost strategies tend to be either deal packaging or rent to rent. But what I can tell you is, if you look at rent to rent, it's not that low cost a strategy, because you've got to take on a property, then you've got to do work to it, so you've got to find that cash and those funds. And remember, you only have £1,000. So if you take on a house on, let's say, a 5-year lease on a rent to rent deal, £1,000 isn't going to get you very far. Now, of course, if you spend that £1,000 on training, good investment, but you might not make the money back. And if it's your only £1,000 that you've got, then putting that all on training is a high risk strategy, because things might not work out for you. Hopefully they will, but they might not. So we've got to be very smart here in terms of thinking of how can we utilize these funds the best. And on the board, I'm going to share with you something else which I think you ought to be thinking about. But let's first share with you what I would do with £1,000. So knowing everything that I know, I would take that £1,000, spend some of that money on networking. So locally to your area, you'll have some property networking groups going on, which could be anywhere from free to a 10, 20, 30 pound ticket. So I'd make sure I go there for a whole year. And let's say the ticket costs me £20 every single month, and let's just say it's in walking or cycling distance, so you don't have to take a car, don't have to spend money on fuel or anything else. So I'd go there, and let's say it's every single month for 12 months, including August and December. So £240 I'm spending there. The rest of the money there, I would then spend with meeting people who I meet at those networking events, talking to them, because I'm pretty confident if you, I, or anybody else goes to a property event every single month over a 12-month period, you'll at least meet one person, usually more by the way, okay, but at least one person who has the ability to either help you do a deal, or to do a deal with you, or to introduce you to somebody who can do a deal with you. And I would be focused purely on no money down. When I say no money down, I mean no money down from you. So somebody else puts the money down and they are the investor, you are the person who, the enabler, who actually does the work. And of course, if you have only £1,000 and you've not done many property deals, talking about commercial conversions or new build, all of that kind of the bigger ticket item isn't going to work for you because you don't have the experience or expertise. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, of course you can, but you'd probably want to take baby steps first to establish a track record. So I would say do a flip with somebody and get them to obviously invest in the deal. You find the deal, you structure it, you make it work, you do all the work, and a third party funds it for you. You make the profit, and you split it half, and you've used obviously your £1,000 for the networking event and meeting people, talking to them, having tea, coffee, lunch or whatever, I think that's going to be the best use of your money, and that's what I would do if I were back in that situation right now. I think investing it elsewhere isn't going to work, and the kind of return you get, even if it's a 20% return on something fantastic, and if you invest £1,000, you're making £200 every single year. So percentage-wise, brilliant return, but actually the hard cash, £200, isn't going to get you that far over a 12-month period. That's why I think you've got to be creative here and think about, what can I do with this money that I've got saved up to try and use to build up my contacts, and then leverage other people's money, but use your own time and resource and knowledge to help them get to where they want to get to. Because there's a lot of people out there, by the way, who've got either quite a significant savings, a good job with good income, or have access to cash. But the one thing that they probably lack, I'm not saying everybody, but the one thing that they probably do lack is time. You, on the other hand, have saved some money, and you are enthusiastic, and you're willing to make time, even if you've got a full-time job, for example, or a part-time job, you're willing to invest that extra time because you want to make the deal happen. That person's busy. They've got the money, but they don't know how to do deals, and they haven't got the time to do it. You haven't got the money, but you've got all the necessary skills and the time, so it's a kind of perfect combination and perfect partnership for you to be able to work with them and make things happen. Of course, once you've done a flip, you can do 1, 2, 3 more flips, and then start moving on to commercial conversions, or new builds, or service accommodation, or HMOs, rent to rent, whatever other strategy you prefer. And usually having more than one strategy is important. But what I really want to cover with you, and I want to share with you, I think this is really important, is how to develop and build long-term sustainable profits, income and wealth. So generally speaking, this is how it works. At the moment, you've got income coming into your business, and this would be by way of a salary if you're working, and if you've got a business, then you've got sales, which lead you to profits, and then you may have, let's say, if you've got any investment, you may have some dividends coming in. If you own your own company, that would be linked to that. If you invest in the stock market or elsewhere, you'd get a bit of that, and you might have some rental profits if you're into property. So the first thing that I want you to be thinking about, I think this is extremely important, is if you've only got one source of income, that's not going to possibly help you create the financial freedom that you want to create. I mean, it depends obviously what your salary is. If you're on, say, let's say 150 grand a year, and your dividend income is £50,000 a year, and your rental profits are £100,000 a year, and you're working towards it, or you're probably nearly there. So I don't know your circumstances, but generally speaking, let's say these figures aren't very high, and you're looking to create future wealth and also financial freedom and some kind of a legacy. So the first thing we want to do is turn this income into 2, 3 or 4 different types of income, because that's then going to be able to help you create a lot of wealth. Because if your salary, let's say, and some of your profits are enough to cover your personal expenditure, then any other income that you generate, handwriting is appalling by the way, over here you can invest and reinvest into other deals. So let's say, for example, at the moment you've got some rental income coming in. Your second form of income could be commercial conversions. There could be new builds. It could be you start investing some funds into service accommodation. Now when you're earning income from all of these, what's happening actually is all of these profits are helping you create a much bigger source of income and wealth. Because on the one side, as I said earlier, you've got income, which creates your current bank balance. So we'll just put current bank. Where I want you to be is Over here, moving towards investments, which creates your future bank. Because it's the future bank that's going to be able to help you create the financial freedom and the income that you really want to earn, depending obviously on your personal aspiration and what you're looking to achieve. So here you're building two things. One is assets, and the other one is equity in the asset, but also income flow. So you've done a commercial conversion, for example, you've created an asset, that asset has increased in value, so you've created equity. Going forward, it's creating more equity, because let's say over a 20 to 25 year period, property doubles in value, so you've created that additional equity by not doing anything extra whatsoever. You're creating income from the asset by renting it out. So now you've got two forms of income. So let's say your rental income is, let's say, £100,000 from the asset. Let's say your expenditure is £70,000. You've created an extra £30,000 every single year net profit, and let's say that's after tax. You've then got a property which, if it's generating you £100,000 rent, let's keep it really simple, I'm going to keep it easy. Let's say it's £1 million. I know the return isn't always 10%, but we're going to just keep it really easy. But so if you've got a property worth £1 million, if we know it's going to increase in value, let's say over 20 years to double, over 20 years, you've created an extra £1 million, which basically over a 20-year period gives you an extra £50,000 a year. So now all of a sudden you're creating an extra £80,000 of income plus equity every single year. So over 20 years you've generated £1.6 million. Now of course, that is £30,000 goes into your bank account. You've got the cash there available to invest, reinvest, or spend on whatever you like. The £50,000 is stuck in the equity, so you're not going to release that or see that right now. It's not liquid per se, but you've got the asset there which you can leverage and sweat it and refinance it and pull the money out at some point in the future. But your future bank value is increasing by £80,000. Now think about it, if you do this for just 2 or 3 deals, and the numbers aren't that big, by the way, to create £100,000 income from a commercial conversion, it ain't that difficult, by the way. And I say that in the nicest way possible, because if you haven't done it, you might think, well, Shaz, you're saying it's easy for you because you've probably done it a few times, which I have, by the way. But I've never done it. But I can tell you, the effort required in terms of setting up a rent business, or the effort required to do a flip, and the effort required to do a commercial conversion, it ain't that much different. Very, very similar. And if you're doing a commercial conversion, that's your 5 flats, compared to doing 5 flats, compared to doing 50 flats, it's pretty much the same. And this kind of dawned on me a few years ago when I was doing smaller deals, and then I dipped my toe into a much bigger deal, so I took a huge jump. So the first ever new build project I did was for 5 2-bedroom flats, well, 2 2-bedroom maisonettes and 3 2-bedroom flats. The next new build deal that I did was for 40 houses. Big leap. Now most people wouldn't take the leap, and I can tell you now, the effort that I expended on both was exactly the same, because you've got banks, lawyers, all the business structure, the time spent, contractors, subcontractors, all that work required. It's not that much extra. But if you compare the return on the 5 2-bedroom houses and flats versus the 40 houses, I mean, you can imagine it's a humongous difference, massive difference. So therefore, to create £100,000 income from a commercial conversion, it's not that difficult. You can do it. Of course, you can't do it with £1,000, but if you do the flips with somebody, once they've done 2 or 3 deals with you, they might then have more faith and confidence in you, which I hope they will do, and then they might say to you, well, I've got access to more cash, which sometimes happens, or I've got access to somewhere where I can get more cash, either a bank or some other investor, so let's do some commercial conversions. And even if you're sharing half of this with somebody else, you can still make £40,000 extra in income and equity every single year. Now just think of repeating this 3 or 4 times over 10 years or 20 years. You've created a huge amount of income stream plus asset value, and it becomes a total game changer. So if I had £1,000, I would definitely use other people's money, invest in property, because I don't think I could do anything else with that £1,000. But then I would move on very quickly to looking at current income, which we had on the previous kind of page over there, and then looking at future value and equity to see how I can create that, because that's going to create real financial freedom, and it's going to enable me to create assets which accumulate income and wealth over a long sustained period.